Good morning, or whatever time it is for you. I'm Katie Dutcher from Flourish and Bloom and Monterey Bay Meditation Studio. And last week, last the video before this, I started talking about courage, what courage is. And just as a little mini review, um, some of the key things that I mentioned there were that, first of all, courage, acts of courage, practicing courage is every day, and it can be very small. And so that goes in the face of what we sometimes think, that it has to be something huge or it doesn't count. So little acts of courage are real as well. And then um, and then that fear always, by definition, includes, sorry, courage, by definition, always includes fear. So we often think that people practice courage and we use words like fearless, but in fact, it's with fear. Courage happens when you have fear and you still act. So um, again, the point of raising those things is that I think often we think that we don't have courage or we haven't acted with courage when we actually have. And for me, it's really important to acknowledge this, to embrace and acknowledge this, because the more we can um, acknowledge what is true, like, yes, I am a person who has fear sometimes, and I am a person who acts courageously. The more that I accept this because it's true, the more I embrace that role, and I stop telling myself things that actually diminish me. I stop saying things like, if I were brave or something like that. But I know that actually, yes, in many ways, I have acted with courage. So I think this for one is true, and then for another, it helps us um, feel empowered, and that can only be a good thing. So I want to add to this week, and the question is, so what do you do with fear? Because fear is essentially maybe the worst um, feeling, worst experience that humans have. So many things are motivated out of fear, even the things when we don't acknowledge fear, like if we think we're angry, sometimes underneath that is fear, or we say we're stressed, underneath that is fear. So fear is so elemental, um, and it is an awful feeling. It feels awful in the body. It goes with difficult thoughts and emotions. And so what do we do with that? How can we work with it? And I want to give some strategies. My own practice in working with fear, I've been doing this consciously for a few years now, probably 3 or 4 years, and it always keeps changing. So this just represents some of the ways I know right now. So one of the key things that I work with when I think about fear is I try to take some time when I know that something is coming and I feel afraid about it, or that I need to do something that frightens me. I try to take some time to actually work with it. So that's the first thing, is just giving some time to address it. And that also implies being willing to acknowledge and address it. And I think that's very key right there, is to be willing to notice that you have fear and to turn toward it rather than away. So once you turn toward it, I think it's really important to start by reminding yourself of things that you know to be true. So these are things that you know to be true about fear, about courage, about yourself. Often when we get in this fear mindset, we kind of are, it feels like we have blinders on and all we can see is the fear. And there are things that we know and have learned over time that we're just not quite accessing right then. So doing yourself a favor and working on accessing it. So some of the things that you know to be true perhaps are that one, fear and courage go together. So every time you're afraid, you have an opportunity to practice courage. You don't have to, but you have an opportunity. Um, Another thing is that it pretty much for a lot of us, fear and anxiety almost always arise whenever we try to do something new, or whenever we do something that is going to kind of stretch us past our old limits, or something that's going to challenge us in some way or ask us to grow. Most of us, almost all of us, want to grow. We want to push past our limits and expand and grow better in so many ways. And so that almost always requires um, this time of fear. It just goes along with it. I think it's something probably having to do with the amygdala, this old reptilian part of the brain, and all it's concerned about is keeping us safe. And so as soon as there's an inkling that we're going to step outside of what is comfortable, there's just these signals saying, no, 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 you hang back, just stay safe, don't do that, walk away. And so just knowing that is just almost always right there together. I want to grow and stretch, I will have fear around it, because that is the nature of things. So reminding yourself, I mean, that's kind of a bummer, right? But reminding yourself of it helps you to recall that's all that fear often means. That, yeah, this is something that's kind of new. This is something that's kind of a big deal. Maybe it even means, oh, I really care about this thing. And that's what the fear is around, because the stakes are high. So the reason that I'm stressing on this is because I think so often we interpret fear in a different way. I know for me, sometimes I think that when I have fear, it means something. Like it means something about me. That maybe if I'm about to do this task and I feel afraid, then maybe that means that I shouldn't be doing it. Maybe it means that I am not good enough, or strong enough, or skilled enough to be doing this, right? And we kind of imagine that fear is it has this like inherent meaning in it, when it really doesn't. It's just fear comes along when we go to stretch. It doesn't have any information in it about our abilities, or anything useful like that. So this is a shift, and that's why it takes time to remind ourselves that there's we can kind of let go of some of the fear, if that makes sense. That, yeah, sure, I'm afraid. It doesn't necessarily mean anything. It's not necessarily the end of the world. So we get used to that. We get accustomed to that. And that way, the next time fear comes along, sure, it's uncomfortable, but it doesn't like maybe blow us back so much. So this is a part of it then, to go ahead and do it scared, to assume that probably some of the time you're just going to have to act along with the feeling of fear. So accepting that. Another thing, I said reminding yourself of things that you know to be true. Reminding yourself about you, who you are. Because however old you are, you have years of working your way through difficult things, working your way through things that challenge you. And for each of us, that's different. But certainly, sometime in the past, there was something that was difficult, something that scared you, and you made your way through it. There was some time, many times probably, that you needed to stretch past your limits. And on the other side of that was growth, and was something that you loved came out of that, came out of stretching past your limits and working through fear. So recalling that, recalling your history, it also helps to recall your strengths. What are the things you know to be true about yourself? What qualities do you have that you've demonstrated in the past? This is not like fake building yourself up or positive thinking. This is like, what have I actually seen myself demonstrate in the past? If you start listing strengths, you'll probably get a pretty good list of them. And for me, this right here, what I'm talking about what you know to be true, I do this a lot in writing, and I actually have over time, because I've been working with this, like I recommend keeping a list so I can go back and it's in my journal and I know what page it is. I can go back and I can look. These are some things I know about fear, so I can read it each time, or I can write it anew. I have a page where I've listed out my strengths, and there's a lot of things you can find online, so you don't have to come up with them. You can find a huge list and then pick out the ones that seem to work for you, that describe you. So having that already ready lets you be able to take a look at it whenever you need to. It's like data that you can access whenever you need to. I think it's really helpful because it's about getting out of that just reptilian, I must be safe, fight, flight, freeze brain, and back into all the big and wonderful things you know to be true. A couple things I'll add about this. Um, One other thing about fear is really it's increased by shame and and silence, I believe. So don't don't let that happen, right? Sometimes we feel ashamed that we're even afraid because we think other people are not afraid or they wouldn't be. Probably not true. So do what you can to acknowledge the fear. Write about it, tell someone about it. This feels sometimes scary to do because of the shame, but secrecy just makes it grow. So when you tell someone, you give them an opportunity to share their own story of fear or to support you in some way. So, choose your person carefully, but see if you can actually talk about it. Give it some space. That way it's in the open rather than um, just kind of scary, hidden in the dark. Another thing to say about your strengths is once you kind of have a list or a sense of what some of your strengths are, you can begin to ask yourself, what of my strengths are needed here? What needs to, in this situation I'm feeling fearful about, what do I need to access? What do I need to bring forward? um, for me, that really helps because it shows that the strength is already there. It's a matter of intentionally manifesting it, bringing it to light. And finally, the last piece here, for now at least, is after. Once you have acted, or once this situation has kind of, you know, crossed over the hill, celebrate. Make sure to celebrate, make sure to reflect, because we really learn from reflecting, and we kind of teach ourselves out of our old habits. So take some time again to just reflect and notice, oh, I was very, very afraid there. And and how did I deal with that fear, and how do I feel now? um, I guess I acted with courage, right? So naming those things and um, not being afraid in whatever way you can to kind of brag about it or marinate in it or be proud of it, because this again, it's you're teaching yourself out of these habits of being afraid of fear and of not acknowledging your own courage. So that's a lot. That's a lot of things, and that is a lot of what I work with when it comes to fear. And so if you can stick around a little longer, I'd like to go into a meditation. So letting yourself close your eyes just where you're sitting now. Taking a couple breaths. Perhaps when I was speaking about fear, about being stretched or challenged, something has come to mind for you. Is there something ahead of you or present for you that feels daunting? Where are you feeling yourself being stretched or challenged? And noticing what this feels like. What does it feel like to look upon, to consider this situation that you're facing? Can you accept this challenge? Do you want to? Is there any sense of determination or motivation that has you want to face, to move through what is challenging? And can you accept the fact that fear will also accompany this challenge? Shifting gears, what do you know about you? How have you seen yourself meet past challenges? When have been the times that you've seen yourself grow, stretching upward, expanding? What strengths, what qualities have you seen yourself demonstrate? What do you already have inside you that will serve you now in this situation? Perhaps there's an ability that you have to find out all the facts, to plan carefully. Perhaps you have this quality of being able to shift gears easily, to flow with what the situation requires. So many qualities that may be available to you. Just a matter of discerning what is most needed here. And what does it feel like to acknowledge these qualities, these strengths that reside within you, that you've demonstrated over and over again? Is there a sensing? Is it possible, perhaps, to feel fear as well as strength? Coming again to your breath, perhaps sensing the steadiness, perhaps a sense of calm, and taking slow, easy breaths. And when you're ready, letting your eyes open. I'm really wishing you well in continuing to work with fear, accessing courage, demonstrating it. And I would love to hear from you if this is resonating with anything that's going on with you right now. You can always email me at hello@katiedutcher.com, or you can comment. And if this is something you want to work with more, definitely if you're in the Monterey area, get in touch. There's many ways to work in groups or individually. And even for those who live far away from me, um, online or on the phone coaching is always there. And in my shop, there's two workbooks that you can actually guide yourself through a process of transforming your relationship with fear and courage and anxiety. So it's katiedutcher.com/shop. And one of the workbooks is Courage Amidst Uncertainty, and the other is Transform Your Relationship to Anxiety. So I hope you'll find many resources to keep working with this if this is what's alive for you right now. And I'll see you next week.